For those of you who think that maybe I kind of veer off course sometimes with these videos, it's because I am. I tend to jump through different topics as they kind of come up in terms of importance to me throughout the days or the weeks or whatever. So if you noticed, I spent 3 days or 2 days going on about homonormative. And the reason I tend to go on about it is because they tend to kind of stimulate my mind a little bit more than any other topic that comes up. Everything else I kind of just post on Facebook. So that's generally what happens. Usually I kind of have a news head in the sense that I whatever holds attention kind of dominates, not so much what not what a thematic approach might call for. It's just about my whimsy, my inkling, and it is a personal website, so I mean, it's nothing else more than that. Atheism being sort of the umbrella. Speaking of which, there's two things that have come to mind recently that kind of bug me a little bit. Not bug me in the sense of irritate me, but they do get me thinking. And there's this issue about consciousness, which I kind of picked up on just because I listened to Sam Harris's latest podcast release, and it's really interesting. It's the one criticism, not criticism, but the issues I have, or the issue I have with consciousness is, after a certain while, it becomes, you get to a level of where you're thinking about consciousness as related through people who have studied this, especially in philosophy, that you're not even sure that you exist. And I'm sure everybody's had that moment before. You can't even say for sure that you exist, and at very least you can't say for sure that everybody outside of you exists. So it kind of brings up a lot of questions, right? Like, what about morality, and what about the way you treat other people? I mean, in certain scenarios, philosophically speaking, you don't have to treat anyone else any better or worse than you think you should, based on whatever it is that's holding you in place, whether it be law or consciousness itself, or some sort of objective morality, or so obviously the stuff plays into the existence of God and of the some creator or some force that keeps us all bound together. So it's just interesting. Other interesting points that were brought up were sort of along the lines of AI, and how AI would, assuming we all have, consciousness as an inherent human facet, or which, as they were discussing, may or may not be all that important. What about AI, and what about mimicry, and all those things? So it was definitely a good podcast. The one thing that frustrates me about that topic, specifically about consciousness, is that you get to this nihilist sort of end a lot of times, where it's kind of like nothing actually really even matters. And I find myself getting to that point through other methods or means as well. So I mean, but really directing that kind of understanding to consciousness and your place in the world, especially on a philosophical nature, because philosophy is really sort of like at the forefront of where everything kind of tends to follow. I know there's some atheists who disagree, and there's some scientists that would disagree, but philosophy really is, sort of like the leading the fringe of our understanding of the world, scientifically anyway. It's sort of, I think, it creates a lot of the questions that science attempts to answer, and obviously there's no definitive end, so a lot of these questions are just left up in the air. And the other thing that, I don't want to make it seem like one topic, but the other thing that's kind of been on my mind these days is the environment and this LEAP manifesto thing. I honestly, I know I was kind of reticent about it in the beginning, but, I have to say that the LEAP manifesto is actually, I feel to be a very important summation of what a lot of people are thinking in Canada, particularly environmentalists. They do have a lot to say about the oil industry, and not just the oil industry and sort of eliminating the oil industry, but in terms of dependence or dependencies on oil, and the expansion of oil and gas infrastructure. I think these are crucial things that we kind of have to define in our quest to a more sustainable energy sector, or more sustainable energy sources. I think that there might be some sort of understanding of renewables as sort of the end of the fossil fuel industry, but obviously there's transitions and things like that have to be accounted for, and it's never easy. It's never easy to make those transitions. There's also the ideas of the idea of any sort of further expansion, and this is kind of going back to the Linda McQuaig article I mentioned a video ago or 2 videos ago about just the transition, which is crucial, as opposed to saying things like, well, the transition is so difficult, we might as well stick with fossil fuels for as long as we can, because we know somehow, somewhere, renewable energy is going to make its because the marketing tells us that renewables are the way to go, so we should just wait for that marketing to congeal somehow. I think a big battle in that marketing is basically actually convincing people to start using less and less fossil fuels. And I mean, it is happening to a large extent. I mean, renewables are making their impact in places like Norway, China, even Saudi Arabia is sort of playing with the idea. I know we're on contentious ground with Saudi Arabia, but I think a lot of economies are paying real attention and have already been profiting from renewables to a large extent. So it's not just marketing, but I think there's a gray zone between transitioning and actually stopping and curbing and reducing fossil fuels. So that may be the subject for more reading. So anyway, that's my video for today, and I will talk to you later. Bye.